At 7:53 a.m. on a Tuesday that would destroy everything, Sarah Mitchell was wiping down table 3 at Rosie's Corner Cafe when she heard the man in the corner booth whisper 5 words that made her freeze. 7 minutes, then it's over. He wasn't on the phone, wasn't talking to anyone, just sitting there, staring at a stack of legal documents, gripping a Mont Blanc pen like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. Sarah had worked the breakfast shift at this Chicago cafe for 6 years. 6 years of burnt coffee, tired smiles, and $2 tips. She'd seen marriage proposals and divorces, first dates and final goodbyes, celebrations and complete mental breakdowns. The corner booth had witnessed them all. But she'd never seen despair like this. The man, expensive suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it, Rolex that cost more than Sarah made in 3 years, wedding ring recently removed based on the pale indent on his finger, kept checking his phone with the obsession of someone watching their life tick away in real time. 7:54 a.m. His hand trembled as he lifted his coffee cup. Black, no sugar. She'd served him the same order every Tuesday for 2 years, though he'd never once looked at her face. To him, she was just the invisible woman who appeared with coffee, background noise in his important life. 7:55 a.m. Sarah moved closer, ostensibly wiping down table 4, but really drawn by something she couldn't name. Maybe it was maternal instinct. She had 2 kids at home who made that same face when their world was ending. Maybe it was human curiosity. Or maybe it was that feeling she sometimes got, like electricity before a storm, when something significant was about to happen. That's when she saw the header on his papers. Bankruptcy filing, Chapter 7 liquidation. Rivers Construction Incorporated. Total liquidation of assets. And below that, a number that made her stomach drop like she'd missed a step going downstairs. Total outstanding debt, $8.4 million. $8.4 million. Sarah knew she should mind her own business. She was a waitress who made $12 an hour plus tips, a single mother who dropped out of community college twice, a woman who bought her kids' clothes at Goodwill and prayed her 2004 Honda would survive another Chicago winter. What could she possibly know about million-dollar bankruptcies? But there was something about line item 34 that made her pause. She'd taken Accounting 101 3 times, never finished it, life kept getting in the way, but Professor Martinez's voice echoed in her memory. Assets can't be counted twice. If someone counts the same asset twice, they're either incompetent or committing fraud. Line 34. Commercial property, 2847 Industrial Parkway, Building A. Outstanding debt, $2.8 million. Line 71. Secured asset, 2847 Industrial Parkway, Unit A. Outstanding debt, $2.8 million. Building A, Unit A. Same address. Same amount. Sarah's heart started racing. She looked at the man again. Daniel Rivers, she remembered now, owner of Rivers Construction. He'd built the new wing at St. Mary's Hospital where her son had his appendix out, built the community center where her daughter took free piano lessons. His company employed 300 people, several of whom lived in her apartment complex. 7:59 a.m. In 4 minutes, this man was going to sign papers that would destroy all of that. Fire 300 people 2 weeks before Christmas. End dozens of construction projects, devastate families across Chicago. Unless the same building was counted twice. Unless that $2.8 million didn't really exist. Unless a waitress who'd never finished community college was somehow right and 3 law firms were somehow wrong. Sarah Mitchell had 2 choices. Stay invisible like she'd been for 6 years, or risk complete humiliation to save a stranger who'd never even noticed she existed. 7:59 a.m. Excuse me, sir. Wait, stop. Before I tell you what happened when Sarah spoke up, before this stranger's entire life pivots on a waitress's observation, I need you to understand something profound. Right now, someone in Tokyo was listening to this before their morning commute. Someone in London is listening during their lunch break. Someone in Sao Paulo is listening while their baby sleeps. We are all connected in this moment, all hoping Sarah finds the courage to speak up. Because we've all been Sarah. We've all noticed something wrong and wondered if our voice mattered enough to mention it. Drop a comment below. Where are you listening from? What time is it there? Have you ever been the person who spoke up when it mattered? And if you believe that sometimes the most important voice in the room is the one nobody expects, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Because what Sarah discovers in these documents will change how you think about every contract you've ever signed. Now, back to that corner booth where everything is about to change. Daniel Rivers looked up from his papers, and for the first time in 2 years, he actually saw the woman serving him coffee. Tired eyes, the kind that came from working multiple jobs. Hands that showed years of hard work. A community college name tag pinned to her apron that said, Student Auditor, Accounting 101. I'm busy, though busy was the wrong word. He was dying, professionally, financially, spiritually dying in the corner booth of a cafe that had witnessed his rise and now was documenting his fall. Excuse me, sir. I'm so sorry to interrupt, her voice shaking slightly, but that building on line 34, it's listed twice. Daniel stared at her like she'd suddenly started speaking ancient Greek. What? The warehouse on Industrial Parkway. It appears in your filing twice, once as commercial property on line 34 and again as secured asset on line 71. Same address, same amount. That's $2.8 million that might be counted twice. The words hung in the air between them like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Daniel's brain, foggy from 3 weeks without real sleep, tried to process what this stranger was saying. That's impossible. 3 law firms reviewed this. My CFO checked every number. The bank's attorneys verified everything. Maybe they missed it? Sarah's voice got smaller, like she was already regretting speaking up. I could be wrong. I just took 1 accounting class and I didn't even finish it. But show me. Sarah leaned over, careful not to actually touch the expensive papers, and pointed with the end of her pencil. Here, line 34, commercial property, 2847 Industrial Parkway, Building A. Outstanding debt, $2.8 million. And here, line 71, secured asset, 2847 Industrial Parkway, Unit A. Outstanding debt, $2.8 million. Building A, Unit A. Same address, same amount. Daniel's eyes darted between the 2 entries. His breathing quickened. Building A and Unit A. That's the same thing, right? Just different terminology? Oh my God! Daniel grabbed his phone, frantically scrolling through emails 6 months ago. We refinanced that property in June, consolidated 2 loans into 1. The old loans were paid off, but... His face went white. But they're showing both the old debt and the new debt as active. So you don't actually owe $8.4 million? If you're right, and God please be right, I owe $5.6 million, which means I might not need bankruptcy at all. I might just need to restructure. 7:58. The cafe door chimed. A man in a $2,000 suit walked in carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly rent. Robert Brennan, senior partner at Brennan, Kelly & Associates, the man who'd prepared the bankruptcy filing. Daniel, ready to sign? We need to file by 9 if we want to stop the foreclosure proceedings. Daniel stood up. For the first time in 3 weeks, his spine was straight. Robert, we need to review everything. There are errors. Daniel, we've been through this multiple times. There are errors, Robert, significant ones. This woman found them in 30 seconds. Robert's gaze shifted to Sarah, taking in her stained apron, her tired face, her drugstore makeup, her community college name tag, and his expression said everything about what he thought of her qualifications. This woman? The condescension in his voice could have stripped paint. This woman, Daniel said firmly, his voice gaining strength with each word, this woman just found $2.8 million in duplicate debt that you missed. Robert's face went through several expressions: disbelief, annoyance, then, slowly, concern. That's not possible. Look for yourself. Robert set down his briefcase and pulled out his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up files, cross-referencing documents. The breakfast rush was starting around them, customers ordering complicated lattes, the espresso machine hissing, Betty, the owner, calling out orders, but the corner booth had become an island of tense silence. Jesus Christ, Robert whispered after 5 minutes. She's right. The warehouse is listed twice. How did we miss this? That's what I'd like to know. What else did you miss? The next 3 hours transformed the corner booth into a war room. Robert on his laptop, making frantic calls to his associates. Daniel on his phone, calling his CFO, his accountant, anyone who might be able to verify the numbers. And Sarah, who should have been working the breakfast rush, kept finding more problems. Sorry, can I just... She pointed to page 12. This revenue projection, it's dated last quarter, but didn't you just win a new contract? Daniel looked up from his phone. The Murphy Community Center, $15 million project. We signed it 6 weeks ago. That's not included in these projections. Your estimated revenue for next year shows $20 million, but with the Murphy Center, shouldn't it be $35 million? Robert's typing became more frantic. Jesus, the revenue projections are wrong, completely wrong. Sarah was on a roll now, her hesitation melting away as the numbers started telling their story. And this equipment list, lines 78 through 95, these model numbers, I recognize them. How could you possibly recognize construction equipment model numbers? Robert asked, his condescension fighting with growing panic. My cousin Tommy works at Brenner Equipment Rental. He's always talking about the new excavators they got. These model numbers, CAT 336F, Komatsu PC 290, these are rental units. You don't own them, right? Daniel grabbed the papers. We rent those, have been for 2 years. It's cheaper than buying for short-term projects. But they're listed here as assets, as collateral against loans. That's fraud, Robert said quietly. If the bank thinks we own equipment we're actually renting, it's not fraud if it's a mistake, right? The question hung in the air. By 11 a.m., they'd found $3.2 million in errors. Not deliberate fraud, or at least nothing they could prove was deliberate. Just mistakes, lazy, sloppy mistakes, from lawyers who assumed someone else had checked, from accountants who trusted previous reports, from a system where everyone was too busy or too important to verify the basics. Daniel didn't need bankruptcy. He needed a loan restructuring, better accountants, and possibly new lawyers. How? Robert asked Sarah. He looked exhausted, defeated, and somehow smaller than when he'd walked in. How did you see what 3 law firms missed, what my entire team missed? Sarah set down the pencil she'd been using to mark documents. When you're poor, you check everything 3 times. Every number matters when $5 is the difference between your kids eating dinner or going to bed hungry. When one mistake on your taxes means you lose your earned income credit and can't pay rent. You guys, you gestured at the papers covered in millions and billions. You throw these numbers around like they're abstract concepts. To me, every number represents something real. Groceries, rent, medical bills. I can't afford to miss mistakes. My ex-husband, she continued, surprising herself by sharing, went through bankruptcy 5 years ago, Chapter 7, just like this. They tried to count his truck loan twice because he'd refinanced it. His lawyer caught it, but only because I asked why the same VIN number appeared on 2 different loan documents. The lawyer said it happens all the time when multiple firms handle different parts of a filing. Nobody talks to each other. Everyone assumes someone else verified the details. Daniel was staring at her with an expression she'd never seen directed at her before. Respect. What's your name? Sarah Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell, Daniel repeated, like he was memorizing it. Sarah Mitchell, You just saved 300 jobs. Hold on, stop right there. If you're feeling that mixture of anger and admiration, anger that 3 prestigious law firms missed this, admiration that a waitress making minimum wage caught it, then you understand why the story matters. Right now, someone in Mumbai is realizing they need to double-check their loan documents. Someone in Berlin is thinking about that contract they signed without reading. Someone in Sydney is remembering when they noticed something wrong but assumed the experts knew better. Before we find out what Daniel does next, before Sarah's life changes forever, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what's the biggest mistake you've ever caught, or the one you wish you had? Because what happens next proves that sometimes the most valuable person in the room is the one nobody notices. "I need to ask you something," Daniel said to Sarah. She was finally back at work, 2 hours late for a shift that should have started at 6. Betty, the owner, had been surprisingly understanding when Sarah explained she was helping a customer with something important. But now the lunch rush was approaching, and Sarah needed the tips. "I'm listening." She poured coffee to table 5, where a young couple was having what looked like a breakup conversation. "Come work for me." Sarah laughed, actually laughed, nearly dropping the coffee pot. "Doing what? I serve coffee and pancakes." "You just did what 3 law firms couldn't. You saved my company." "I noticed some numbers." "You asked questions everyone else was too proud or too lazy to ask. You looked at documents with fresh eyes. You spoke up when you could have stayed silent. That's exactly what I need." Sarah set down the coffee pot on an empty table. "Mr. Rivers, Daniel, she took a breath. "I appreciate what you're trying to do here, I really do, but I'm not qualified to work at a construction company. I dropped out of community college, twice. The first time because my son got sick and the medical bills buried us. The second time because my car died and I couldn't afford to fix it and pay tuition. I have 2 kids who need me home by 3:30. I can't work weekends because childcare is too expensive. I have no degree, no references, no experience." "You have something better." "What? Poverty?" "Perspective." Daniel stood up from the booth. "You see what others miss because you've lived a different life than the people I usually hire. They all went to the same schools, learned the same things, think the same way. They've never had to count pennies or worry about $5 differences. You have." "I don't own a suit." "I'll buy you 10 suits, 20. "Sarah, please." His voice cracked with something that sounded like desperation. "I need someone who will tell me the truth, someone who asks uncomfortable questions, someone who isn't afraid to speak up when everyone else is nodding along. I need someone who sees the details that everyone else thinks are beneath them." Sarah looked around the cafe. 6 years of minimum wage, 6 years of aching feet and rude customers, 6 years of bringing home leftover sandwiches so her kids could have lunch the next day, 6 years of invisibility. What would the job even be? Financial review specialist. You'd look at every contract, every invoice, every financial document that crosses my desk. Your job would be to ask, does this make sense, and what are we missing? "I don't have a degree." "I'll pay for you to finish one. Full tuition, flexible hours for classes." "My kids?" "Full benefits, medical, dental, vision, for you and them. Plus, we have an on-site daycare for employees." Sarah felt tears building. "Why would you do this?" "Because you spoke up when you could have stayed quiet. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how valuable? I've paid consultants hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell me what you figured out in 30 seconds. You were just being brave. That's worth everything." Sarah looked at the booth where Daniel almost signed his life away, where Sarah almost stayed silent, where everything almost ended. "Can I still work Sunday breakfast shift here?" Daniel blinked. "Why would you want to?" "Because this is where I learned my voice matters. I don't want to forget that. I don't want to become someone who stops seeing the details." "Deal." "And I want to bring one more person with me." "Who?" "My cousin Tommy, the one who works at the equipment rental place. He knows every piece of construction equipment in the city. He'd know immediately if someone was trying to bill you for something you don't need." Daniel smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from him. "Done. When can you start?"
Monday? Monday.
3 weeks later, Sarah Mitchell walked into Rivers Construction wearing her first business suit. Navy blue, professional, perfectly fitted. It cost more than she used to make in a month, but Daniel had insisted. Her office, she had an office, was small but had a window overlooking the city. On her desk was a nameplate, Sarah Mitchell, Financial Review Specialist. Her salary? $72,000 plus benefits, 3 times what she'd made at the cafe. Her first day, she found a $50,000 error in a supplier contract. They were being billed for materials already included in another invoice. Her first week, she caught a billing mistake that would have cost them a major client. The client had been overcharged by $15,000 due to a decimal point error. Her first month, she saved the company $400,000 in various errors, duplications, and oversights. How? Daniel asked during their Friday review meeting. How do you catch things everyone else misses? I ask myself, would I pay this with my own money? If I had to count out these dollars from my wallet, would this make sense? If the answer feels wrong, I dig deeper. That's it? That's everything. You guys think in abstractions, millions, billions, market shares, profit margins. I think in reality. Is this worth 3 months of groceries? Is this worth a year of rent? It changes how you see the numbers. But here's the part that really mattered. Every Sunday morning, Sarah still worked breakfast at Rosie's. 4 hours, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. She served coffee, cleared tables, listened to conversations, stayed connected to the world she came from. Daniel came in every Sunday at 7:53 a.m. Same booth, same black coffee, same stack of papers. But now they were expansion plans, not bankruptcy documents. Why 7:53? Sarah asked one Sunday, 6 months after that first morning. Because that's when my life changed. When someone I'd never noticed before saved everything I'd built. I was always here, every morning for 6 years. I know, Daniel said quietly. That's what haunts me. How many times did I walk past you? How many times did I not see you? How many other people like you are invisible because people like me don't look? Most of us, Sarah said simply, most of us are invisible. Not anymore. Not in my company. And he meant it. Over the next year, Rivers Construction hired 5 more non-traditional employees, people without degrees, but with perspective. Tommy, Sarah's cousin, who became equipment specialist. Maria, a former hairdresser, who understood customer service better than any MBA. James, a veteran who'd managed military supply chains and could spot logistical problems instantly. Chen, who'd run his family's restaurant and understood vendor relationships. Patricia, who'd raised 5 kids and could manage any project thrown at her. They called themselves the Reality Check Team. Their job? Question everything, assume nothing, speak up always. In their first year, they saved Rivers Construction $2.8 million, exactly the amount that had been mistakenly double-counted in the bankruptcy filing. But here's the moment that really changed everything. 18 months after that morning in the cafe, Sarah's daughter Emma got sick, really sick. Juvenile arthritis that required specialists, treatments, medications that would have cost thousands a month without insurance. Sarah's benefits covered everything. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to choose between her child's health and bankruptcy. Didn't have to set up payment plans or beg for charity care. Didn't have to lie awake calculating medical debt. She called Daniel from the hospital. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. That morning, you could have dismissed me, could have ignored me like you had for 2 years. Sarah, you saved my company. No, her voice was firm. I mean thank you for seeing me as someone worth listening to.
Do you know how rare that is for someone like you to really hear someone like me? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. It shouldn't be rare. No, Sarah agreed. It shouldn't, but it is. Before you go, before you click away and return to your life, I need you to understand what really happened in this story. Sarah Mitchell wasn't special. She wasn't a genius. She wasn't a hidden expert waiting to be discovered. She was just someone who paid attention and wasn't afraid to speak up. And Daniel Rivers? He wasn't a hero. He wasn't particularly noble or enlightened. He was just desperate enough to listen to someone he'd normally ignore. But together they saved 300 jobs, rebuilt a company, and proved that the most important voices often come from the most unexpected places. Right now, someone in London is thinking about their office cleaner who always seems to notice things others miss. Someone in Tokyo is remembering the security guard who mentioned something important that everyone dismissed. Someone in New York is realizing they've been ignoring good ideas because of who they came from, not what they contained. If this story made you think, if it made you want to listen more carefully to the people you usually overlook, then hit that subscribe button. Join our Story Buddy family of over 2 million people who believe every voice matters. Tell me in the comments, who's the unexpected person in your life who taught you something important? What detail have you noticed that others missed? Next week, I'm sharing the story of a parking attendant who noticed the same woman crying in her car every lunch break. His simple act of kindness, offering her a bottle of water, exposed a human trafficking ring and saved 17 lives. You won't want to miss it. Remember, every voice matters. Every perspective counts. The person serving your coffee might be the one who saves your company. The person cleaning your office might notice what your executives miss. The person you've never really seen might be the one who sees everything. Thank you for these 30 minutes. Thank you for being part of the Story Buddy family. Now go into your day and really see someone you usually overlook. Listen to someone unexpected. Because sometimes the most important moment of your life comes disguised as an interruption from someone you think doesn't matter. I'm your Story Buddy. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your heart ready.